With me now is the Nationals leader, David Littleproud. You were with us for our coverage on Saturday night. It was a big night, and now we're seeing Maranoa, your seat, at around 85% no. That level of support for your position, that's got to be a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, look, I didn't expect above 80. I thought well within the 70s from what you could feel on the ground. But the electorate's very hard to read sometimes. They're very polite in Maranoa, whether they vote for you or not. Everyone has to live with one another, so we all get on. And it was a deeply personal decision. I think that was what we wanted to create too, was an environment where the debate was respectful, the tone was right, and I think the Nationals set that above anybody else, so they could make that personal decision and have comfort of whether it was a yes or no. And I think we gave them that comfort to vote no. So, yeah, it's just ticked over 85% with postals and some more postals to come in. And they're tracking in at over 90%.
Do you think it's time now to move on from the politics around the voice and try and achieve a bit of unity?
Yeah, look, and I think it's important. Australians are disappointed that they were put to this. They were asked to go and vote on something that was flawed. And I think that the resounding result is very, very damaging to the Prime Minister in the sense that he didn't listen. He didn't take the Australian people into his trust. He didn't explain it properly. It was a flawed proposition. And the Australian people saw it through it. But what they want us to do is they want us to be the adults in the room, and they want us to close the gap where it hasn't been closed. And it has been closed in some parts of the country. We shouldn't talk ourselves down. We actually have done a good job in many parts of this country in closing the gap. But where it isn't, doing something we did in the past of having a representative body isn't going to close the gap there. We need to actually get out into those local communities and make local solutions with local elders.
And do you think get the politics out of it now?
Yeah, and I think that's important. And sadly, we've tried, even while the voice was being debated, to get underneath the bonnet of where the money's being spent, how we're spending it, because we didn't do it as well as what we could have either.
Yeah.
So this isn't trying to portion blame to the current government. This is saying we've got 11 Indigenous Australians that have come to this parliament telling us we can do better in how we use Australian taxpayers' money. So why don't we get under the bonnet? That shouldn't stop us.
That's with the audit.
With an audit?
Michaelia Cash yesterday, Andrew Clennell asked her, why didn't you do it when you were in government? She said, well, we've got Jacinta Price now with real experience. What about Ken Wyatt? He was in the parliament.
It was a failure of our government not to have got underneath the bonnet. I made these comments on Sunday as well. I think you've got to put your hand up. You've got to be big enough to say that you're not going to get everything right. And when you do get it wrong, or there is a better way, then you should pivot. And when you've got 11 Indigenous Australians that are here and telling us there's a better way and something's not right, then you should listen. And that's what the Prime Minister should do. And they should take our hand and audit this, but not stop in rolling out programs and start to get Canberra out of Canberra, bureaucrats, and get them around campfires and town halls in those remote communities.
Peter Dutton's indicating that there won't be another referendum if you win the next election, that initially, at the beginning of last month, he told Sky News that he would support a referendum just on the symbol of recognition, the simple sort of recognition component. Now he's saying people have had enough of it. Is that the right call?
I think we've been divided by a Prime Minister for the last 16 months. There's a lot of trauma out there, and you're even seeing the Yes campaigners having a week of mourning. This has traumatised the nation, and the Prime Minister didn't need to go down this path. So it's important that we understand, we get on with the job of what the Australian people send us. A very strong message on Saturday. That message was to go and fix where there is disadvantage and make sure that the country looks after those that need the help, but we move on and focus. I mean, we've had 16 months of wasted opportunity to look after cost of living pressures. This Prime Minister in 16 months, all he's done is driven up people's cost of living and divide our country. We can do better than that.
On moving on and closing that gap, should the opposition leader himself introduce legislation for the local and regional voices, which the coalition has backed, and that would be an olive branch, a show of goodwill if he was to do that?
Well, we'd want to see the design of that. And again, regional voices don't necessarily work out in rural and remote areas, because the practical reality of it is you're covering hundreds of thousands of square kilometres, hundreds of different diverse communities. And that's what we did last time with ATSIC.
So you're not on board with the Liberal position on that?
Well, not until we see the detail. And we believe in empowering local elders in local communities. That's where the challenge is. And invariably, that's the last 20% of Indigenous Australians that live in rural and remote areas. And that's where you need the bureaucracy out of Canberra, sitting out there, empowering the local elders with the local design, rather than sending someone from Canberra where they generalise and nationalise programs that don't get buy-in.
David Littleproud, thanks, and thanks again for being part of our coverage Saturday. Appreciate it.
I enjoyed it. Thank you.